Perfect. Well, it looks like it's starting to slow down. So, good afternoon or good morning or good evening, depending where you're dialing in from. We're going to go ahead and get started with the MBA Reapplication Webinar. My colleague, Eviana Bell, is in the background and she's going to be driving the slides for me. So she'll go ahead and advance to the next one. We will be joined shortly by some panelists, but first, I'm going to do some upfront introductions and talk a little bit about the program, the process, some next steps before we turn over to our lovely panelists. So moving forward, my name is Trisha Bayoni, and I am the Dean of Admissions. You can see by my name here too, I'm also a very proud alum. I'm class of 2009. And one thing that I absolutely love about this session is this session was designed out of my own experience. I was a reapplicant to CBS. So Columbia denied me before they admitted me. I had originally applied at the end of the cycle in 2005, 2006 to start and was denied for starting in August of '06. I got all the way through to the interview and then was denied in June before the August start. And I reassessed and thought about, where my application may have had some shortcomings, made some changes, wrote the reapplication essay and reapplied the following year, and am now a proud alum of the class of '09, having started in '07. So it was a long time ago, but I absolutely remember the feeling the day that I was denied from Columbia. And I remember even more the day I was admitted into CBS. And that changed the course of my life, and hope to be able to share some learnings with you from that. So let's talk a little bit about why CBS. Next slide, Aviana. Okay. Columbia is very much a global school. We have a global perspective. We lean in to it as well. We have about 35 to 40% of our student body are foreign nationals. And we very much value that geographical representation in the classroom and in the community. The classroom and the community also bridge theory and practice, as well as in careers. The gap that exists between theory and practice doesn't exist in our classrooms. Why? Well, one, you were able to have incredible guest speakers who are coming into your classroom. Sometimes they are professors of practice because every industry is headquartered or has a major hub in New York City. The heads of every industry and the heads of every company are coming through New York. And so you might walk into an elective of 40 people, and your guest speaker of the day is a very prominent CEO whose company was in the headlines of the Wall Street Journal that day. Or you might sign up for an elective where you're being taught by somebody who is developing the next great technology that's going to move markets. You're also being taught by incredible professors who are at the forefront of research, and they are driving innovations in industry. Because you're in New York, you also have this vibrant ecosystem of New York City. As I noted, that industry is all in New York, regardless of what you're interested in. But you also have this vibrant ecosystem that is geographically diverse, culturally diverse. Every neighborhood is very different from each other. And so you get this vibrant city life that's very much integrated into your CBS experience. And it's a highly impactful network that's very supportive. We pride ourselves on being a community that is not only inclusive, but has a pay it forward mentality where students are supporting students, students are supporting prospective students, as you see on this call today. Alumni support students, alumni support alumni, and it opens doors not just into the school as a prospective student or post-graduation for your first MBA job. It opens doors 10, 15, 20 years down the line for you. That network always shows up and they're always willing to take your call. And so CBS has these sort of key milestones of the why CBS, and the fact that you are here today on a reapplicant webinar shows us that you've already bought into the why CBS. And so we're so excited to have you. Moving forward and thinking a bit more about our community, it's global as well. And it's global not just from where people are coming from, but where they are going to. It's also global in your actual experience, in that you are able to be a part of an elective that is going internationally to learn about business in another market. You're able to go on treks with student clubs to learn about business in an industry that's specific to you. And New York City is your backdrop. I just love a fun graduation picture. Okay, let's stop on some degree offer options. Your journey really, it has a few buckets. We have the full-time MBA, which has two entry points. It has the August entry point that is a traditional MBA program. You have 2 semesters, 2 consecutive semesters of classes. You have a break for the summer to do a formal internship, and then you come back for your second year, 2 more semesters, and you graduate. The January entry, or the J term, is 4 consecutive semesters, no break in program, so it is not designed for those who are looking to switch careers. It's designed for those who are coming from or returning to a family business. It is those who are sponsored, returning to their sponsoring company. It's for entrepreneurs. It might be for somebody who has a deep expertise in one particular industry, let's say hedge funds or real estate, and you're going right back into the industry and you're just taking a short break. But if you're looking to pivot your career in industry and function or in geography, J-term may not be right for you. August entry is probably a better fit for you if you need that summer internship to make the pivot. There's a third way into the full-time MBA program, and that's for deferred enrollment. So if you are currently an undergrad on this call, or if you're coming from undergrad directly into a different master's program and then you want to apply to your MBA, you can apply to deferred enrollment, where if you're admitted, you then must work for a minimum of 2 years, up to 5 years, before you matriculate into the full-time MBA, either August or January entry. We also have MBAs with dual degrees. 2 are standalone applications only that I want to highlight. The 3-year JD MBA, where you start at the law school for a year, and then in year 2, you start as an August entering full-time MBA student, but you graduate in 3 years with both your JD and your MBA. We also have the dual degree with engineering, MBA XMS. This is, you are dually enrolled in both schools for the entirety of the 2 years. You have the summer off to either do an entrepreneurship endeavor or to have an internship in enterprise. And you are taking classes at both the business school and the engineering school. And it's 2 master's degrees in 2 academic years with a summer break. It's incredibly intense. It's also incredibly technical, and a STEM background is required for that program. There are additional MBA dual degrees as well that are available to you, where you apply to the MBA as a standalone and you apply to the other schools, for example, Mailman School of Health or School of Public Policy, and you can then merge them on the back end as a dual degree. I just want to make note of the fact that if you have some more years of work experience, an executive MBA might be right for you. Our full-time MBA and our dual degrees, the average years of work experience is 5. Our executive MBAs are 12 plus years of work experience, and there's 2 formats, one based only in New York and one that's a joint with LBS. You must be employed full-time and sponsored by your company for time sponsorship to be eligible. But if that's of note and you're a reapplicant, want to highlight that, as well as highlight that we have 3 specialized masters, and of course we have PhD. But let's today focus on the MBAs, the variety of MBAs. Over 300 faculty members, not including professors of practice who are working in industry. 92% of our graduates from the MBA program receive a full-time offer 3 months after graduation. The more fun fact, however, is that 98% of our students are employed 6 months post-graduation. So I love that one even more, because real-world hiring is not a random fixed date on graduation. We have 800 venture-backed startups that have been founded by CBS alumni. New York, as many of you know, is, sort of the second startup capital after Silicon Valley, and the New York ecosystem for startups is fueled by CBS alums. And there are 54,000 of us worldwide. As I mentioned, we are a global school. You all get access to executive in residence in any of our degree programs. And there are 20 of them who are all former C-suite who are there to mentor you, advise you. Some of them teach classes as well. And of course, the 80 plus student-led organizations. As we think about your entry terms, I mentioned August versus January entry. This is just how the courses work. Your first semester is core, regardless of whether you start in August or January. They're identical classes. Your second semester, you have one remaining core and then all electives. In the summer, the January students are in that second semester and electives, including block week format electives, where you take 3 credits over a 5-day period. And the August entrants are an internship. And then in year 2, everybody is in electives and it's all one big class. So August entry has about 740 students who enter. January entry has about 230. So all combined, we're just under 1,000 for the second year class and for the graduating MBA class. So who are reapplicants? Because this is a webinar about reapplicants. You are considered a reapplicant if you applied in the 2026 cycle. So that's this cycle that has just ended. If you applied last year to begin in 2026 to the same program and the same entry point. So that is who we consider to be a reapplicant. So if you applied to August 2026 entry, so in, let's say, round 1, September 2025, you applied for August 26 entry for full-time MBA and you were denied, you are considered a reapplicant if you're applying for August 2026 entry right now. If you are in that category, we ask for 1 new letter of recommendation. We have your letter of recommendation from last year, still on file, but we want a new one. We ask you to write a reapplicant essay. It's a simple essay that asks you to tell us what is different from last year, because we still have access to your 3 essays from last year. Our essays did not change this year. And then we ask you to update any of the additional application materials that may have changed. Your resumes probably updated. Maybe you've taken new test scores. So we ask you to just make sure all the rest of the application is up to date so you're putting your best foot forward. If you applied to us in 2025 or prior, so that was for entry in 2025 or prior, we ask for you to submit a new application. So that's all 3 essays. We still have access to your application materials from 2 cycles ago, but we do want you to restate the 3 essays because the essays do have changed. They're the same as last year. They are not the same as 2 years ago. There have been some changes. So we want to give you the opportunity to share with us your thoughts on those essays that are new, as well as the fact that you are a new candidate 2 years later. And so we want to hear all about your hopes, dreams, and goals and everything you've been doing in the last few years. If you're looking to change programs, so let's say you previously applied to MBA and now you want full-time MBA, or let's say that you previously applied to J-term and now you want August, we are going to ask that you also submit the new application as well. Again, there are different programs and different formats, and so we just want to give you the most amount of opportunities you can to share with us whatever you think is relevant for us to make our decision. Next slide. Great. So choosing your recommender, you only need 1. Ask them well in advance. We are going to ask them to upload a business card or their email signature. That's the same as the last time you applied. This is so that when somebody is admitted and you go through the Rivera process, this is for us to be able to contact your recommender to verify that recommendation. Also want to just remind everybody that the optional essay is truly optional. Only want you to use it to provide any context that you feel is needed. We find it helpful if somebody took a break from school or a break from work to use the optional essay to tell us a little bit more about why they did that. If there's something that is essential to who you are or how you're going to show up in our community that the other questions aren't answering and you want us to understand more about it, please share it. A little pro tip though, we do know the essays of all of the other peer schools. And sometimes people will use the optional essay to take an essay they wrote for a different school and plop it into the optional essay section for us. We can tell that it's an essay you wrote for a different school, so it's not recommended that you do that. If invited to interview, similar to if you were interviewed in the past, it's a 40-minute interview. It's virtual. It's conducted by alumni or second-year students or one of the admissions officers. You won't know who they are until 48 hours before your scheduled interview. So nothing has changed about the interview process if you were interviewed last year. And if you were not interviewed last year, this is the same process as it would have been. Okay. Reapplication tips. What we look for doesn't change year to year. And we look for your growth when you're a reapplicant. You know, as I noted at the top, when I was denied from Columbia, I took a step back to try to understand, well, maybe why was I denied? Well, the first reason that I'm pretty confident was I applied at the end of the cycle. I applied it in around 3. And the class was mostly full at that point. And so the admissions committee at the time took a chance on me to invite me to interview because they were curious about my background, but the class was fairly full. And so there wasn't space to make me the offer. The second reason I was likely denied was that I was coming from a non-quantitative background. I was a journalist and I was a poli-sci major undergrad. Some of you who may have heard me present in other capacities have probably heard this story, but you know, I had almost 10 years of professional work experience, but it was all in journalism as a consumer magazine editor. And as a poli-sci major, I had very little exposure to quant classes. And so the admissions committee was looking at my test scores with a little bit more of a fine eye because there was nothing else in my application to show that I could handle the rigor of the CBS curriculum. And my test scores were below the median. They were fine, they were in range, but they were still below the median. And what it in some ways may have showed me was that, well, I didn't do enough to show that I could handle the rigor of core, that I would be able to succeed in the classroom. And so I was like, well, let me try to take a new test. Let me double down on the studying and let me try to raise that score to show that I am being set up for success if Columbia admitted me and I would do well in the classroom. So I did, and I did raise my score, you know, significantly actually when I tested that time. The other thing that I realized was that because I had a non-quant background, I also had a non-business background. Journalism isn't business in a traditional sense. And so I decided to try to get sort of a consulting related type position in marketing, which is what I was saying in my essays I wanted to go to. And so by having a more business focused role for sort of that reapplication year, I was able to show the admissions committee that I was really serious about my career pivot and that I was taking steps to really understand the new function that I wanted to head into, which was marketing. So as a reapplicant, know that the admissions committee is evaluating you on how well do you know CBS? What is your academic strength, your professional promise, your personal characteristics? What is that self-reflection? But as that reapplicant, they're also looking for how have you grown from the previous year? That's that self-reflection that's almost even more important. It's like, what have you done to really improve the areas that maybe were a little bit weaker? Above all, be authentic. Please do not write your reapplication essay saying things you think we want to know. We are looking at your first application, so we are looking for a through line that's happening. Your goals may have changed entirely, and that's okay. Tell us, but also tell us why. And tell us what was the inspiration to the change. You're wanting to show us that you are getting to second and third level insights. If you are a little bit weaker on your quant, and perhaps you're not testing that well, consider taking something like an MBA math or Wall Street prep or some sort of course that demonstrates to us that you can handle the academics. If your career has kind of stalled, see if you can take on stretch projects to show us how you are trying to improve in your professional promise. And if you were really strong academically and you have really strong impact on your resume, but you never came to anything with CBS and you didn't really know us that well, try to talk to some current students or recent alumni and attend additional events from this one to get to know us, because we are also wanting to understand how are you going to show up in our community? What's the value you're going to add in our community? How are you enhancing us? And the only way to be able to communicate to the admissions committee how you're going to enhance CBS is to understand what CBS already offers and how you are going to be a part of that conversation. So getting to know us in turn allows you to share with us how you're going to be part of it. Deadlines. They're coming up. So January J-term entry for 2027 is still open. Round 2 is due on August 13th. Obviously, round 1 deadline has already passed, and we have really concluded interviewing in round 1, and final decisions are coming out this week for round 1, but round 2 is still open. So if J-term is of interest to you, go ahead and open that application and submit it. And you would have a decision no later than October 1st, but the January interviewing and decisions are on a rolling basis. So you are able to potentially find out sooner than October 1st. For the August 27 entry, the deadlines for both the full-time MBA as well as the MBA Executive MS in Engineering have the exact same deadlines. Round 1 is due September 9th. That's the Wednesday after Labor Day at noon. This is a structured rounds process, so interview decisions will be released no later than November 2nd. They will start rolling out earlier, but they will be released no later than November 2nd. And all decisions will be released on December 14th. There's always questions around, are they releasing early? Is that a real deadline? That is a real deadline. We will release decisions December 14th. Round 2, similarly, you can read the dates. January 5th is the deadline for round 2. We release on March 24th. And round 3 is very small, but we do have it. And the application deadline March 29th, and we release decisions on May 12th. We encourage you to apply when your application is ready. We will say that if funding is of concern to you, funding priority is round 1 and round 2 only. There is almost no funding left by the time we get to round 3. But we do equally weigh round 1 and round 2. There is no advantage to applying in round 1 versus round 2 or round 2 versus round 1. Our class is almost evenly split for who applied and which. The advantage is you should apply when you feel that your application materials are ready for submission and you are confident in the application package that you are submitting. Some of you may be interested in applying to us through the consortium. That application has not yet opened, although it does open in 18 days. It opens on August 15th. The application is directly through the consortium. The advantage is obviously you are able to apply to multiple schools with one application. The early deadline is October 15th, and we will release decisions for anybody who applies by October 15th on that December 14th date, consistent with our round 1 release, our admit date. And then the final deadline is January 5th. And that, again, will have the exact same final decision that we have for our round 2. You must be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident who demonstrates a commitment to the consortium's mission to be considered for eligibility, and consortium determines whether you meet eligibility. Columbia does not. Okay, frequently asked questions. When should you apply? When you're ready. When does your application need to be complete? Your application must be complete by noon of the deadline. That includes your letter of recommendation. So ask your recommender early to get started on it, and make sure they know what the deadline is, because if your application is incomplete, we will roll you over to the next round, even if everything that you need to do is done, but your recommender has not submitted. Then you get rolled over. So it's your responsibility to make sure that your recommender is aware of the deadlines and submits on time. We have absolutely no preference as to which test or tests you submit to us. We accept the GMAT, both 10th edition and Focus, GRE, as well as the executive assessment. We have found that sometimes students will take one test and not do so well on it. And they take one of the other tests and they actually do a lot better. And that's because the tests all are testing the same thing, but they assess differently. So you might not do so well on the GRE and do fantastic on the GMAT. You might not do so well on the GMAT, and the executive assessment is something that you find really awesome. So if you take one and you're not happy with your scores and you take it a second time and you're still not happy, consider taking a different test. We do love it when applicants send us all of their test attempts, because we can see the progress that you've made. It says something to us that you are really committed to this process and trying to improve yourself. And it's okay to only send us the one that you want to send us. We will take into consideration whatever you send us. You do need a new letter of recommendation as a reapplicant. As we discussed, we encourage you to pick somebody different, just to give us a different point of view on who you are. And if not much has changed since your last application, share something that you didn't share the first time around. We do hope to see some growth between your last application and this application. We do hope that you've taken some time to self-reflect after a denial and to understand where you could grow. We also hope that all professionals grow within a year, within whatever role they're in. So we do hope that you will have something new to share with us. Really have conversations with your colleagues and your friends and your family about how have you grown over the last year. They will all likely have perspective for you, and certainly your annual performance reviews with your company will have some great nuggets of information for you to think about sharing with us. All right, I think, Eviana, I am 8 minutes late to starting the panel, but I can do this. So I would like to invite our three panelists, who are all rising second year students currently on their internships, to chat a little bit with us. And we're going to go in order. So Kenton, I'd love for you to kick off introductions and, perhaps touch on your pre-CBS experiences, your application journey, and then what are you currently doing at CBS and for the summer?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right, so I will get into it. Like you mentioned, I also am a reapplicant here. Giving you a little bit more background on my journey, a kid from Connecticut who played football at the University of Connecticut. Within that, had a chance to briefly play for the Cleveland Browns and Chicago Bears before starting my career in business. Started out at Morgan Stanley and eventually Merrill Lynch, where I was doing high net worth financial advising, really client services, and we'll get kind of into that thread. And then turned that into a career in tech sales, where I was then building on those skills in client services. Came to Trisha that first year and kind of sold her that package. And I think some of the things that she mentioned really resonated with. Came in with a test score that maybe was a little bit below the average, came in with a couple of things that maybe weren't exactly where I wanted them to be, but had a healthy hubris about why I belonged at Columbia. And I think what happened there is really when I got and I won't get into the full questions here, but when I got the letter that I was not going to be let in the first time around, really leaned back on my background and the skills that I had built leading up to that point to allow me to come back and really focus on what I needed to. But going into what I do here now at Columbia, going into the second year, I'll be the chair of our Career Management Center. So if you guys do get on campus and you reach out to the CMC fellows, I'll be your guy there, or whoever is following up after me. Also, with that, I'm involved with our peer advisors, our BBSA, our AI club, our basketball club. May have signed up for one too many things, but when you guys get here, you'll see how things can kind of suck you in. There's a lot of fun stuff going on. And then this summer, I actually just finished up, and Trisha meant to send you an email, but just finished up my internship with McKinsey in New York City and was able to secure the return offer. So excited here, my first week of freedom, but happy to be on this call and answer any questions that you guys have.
Perfect. Thank you. Indira.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Indira. I'm a rising second year as well. Before CBS, I worked in consulting for 4.5 years at Deloitte in New York and then in DC, advising financial institutions initially, and then was focused on USAID as a project coordinator in emerging markets. So working across renewable energy and public finance. Um, yeah. So that kind of interest brought me to CBS, where I'm focusing on like finance and sustainability. On campus, I'm involved with BBSA, peer advisors, social enterprise club, French Connection Club, REAP, a whole bunch of different things. This summer, I am doing strategy and operations for a renewable energy software development company in Cape Town, South Africa, actually. So we'll be doing that over the next few weeks.
Amazing. Thank you. Chris.
Thank you, Kenton, Indira. Thank you, Tricia. My name is Chris Peer. I'm originally from New Jersey, not far from here in New York City. Before the MBA program, I served in the United States Army for a little over 7 years. I was an infantry officer stationed in Alaska, a good bit of time in South Georgia, and tour overseas in the Middle East. I exited the Army in 2023 and promptly submitted my application to CBS. I received an interview. I was waitlisted for a good bit of time, and I knew going into it that I had a lot of leadership experience. I, like Tricia, was a political science undergrad, kind of a non-traditional candidate, no real formal business experience, and I was waitlisted until the 11th hour, really in and around July, and I kind of communicated with the admissions team and had a frank conversation with them. I ended up taking an exam again, and I was happy to be admitted the following year in round one. Um, but I'm super happy to be here right now. Currently at CBS, I'm involved in the investment banking club, in the veterans club, of course. Trying to expand a little bit more here in the second year now that I have a little bit more time into some more clubs, automotive, hopefully wine and spirits, we'll see. But I am in the leadership positions in investment banking and veterans club. I love planning events. I love hosting people. I pride myself on that. And so that's what I'm looking forward to doing this next year. I'm currently interning in investment banking at Wells Fargo. Kenton, we are not done with our internship yet, but we did just finish the capstone project. So relief is there and waiting on next steps. But yeah, thanks everyone for jumping on the call.
Well, amazing. Thank you. All right, let's get into it. Kenton, I would love for you to talk a little bit about when you received your denied decision. What was your immediate reaction? Was it a rejection? Was it a second chance? Did you want to kill me?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't a fun one. Maybe leaning towards the third one closer than the first one. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Honestly, I really definitely, like anybody would be, I definitely was pretty upset. I feel like you put a lot of time and effort and energy and thought process into the journey. But I think, like I kind of touched on, my background is one, whereas I took it as in the sense of like, look, the door's not closed. They haven't emailed me and told me, please do not come back. Please leave us alone. And Trisha will laugh at this because I promise you, after kind of spending some time with doing some introspection, like Trisha talked about, like really understanding where my own gaps were in the process. I honestly pulled back up to campus and was like, hey guys, like I'm still super excited. I'm still ready. But what can I do? And these are the gaps that I think that I have.
I
And I
think you
think,
were like back on campus like September 1st. Like,
hmm,
because similar to Chris, you were on the wait list pretty long. And like, I
yep,
think 2 weeks later, you were at an event and you were like, hi, I'm doing this again. Let's
yep,
like, I'm still here. I
yep.
still love CBS.
100%. And I think that's why I used that funny term healthy hubris, because it was like you guys had just told me you don't want me this year, but I was like, look, I believe in the things that I've kind of accomplished to this point in my life and career. And so I know I need this to take me to the next step, and let's figure it out. And I think that really, really helped me in the process. I think some of the things that helped me as well is knowing that there are other tests that you can take and not kind of beating your head against the wall against the same thing. It's knowing that, like, because the door is opened again, and like Trisha said, I'm someone who just kept showing up. But knowing that they weren't telling me to stop showing up meant that I was close. I was there. And that there's just things I had to tweak within my own journey and not so much change the core of who I am, to get in the door. And I think that belief in myself, which I'm sure pretty much everyone who's on this call who has decided they want to be an MBA program also has, really helped fuel me to keep going and to apply and change the outcome.
Indira, can you talk a little bit about your sort of reflection process? I'm saying constantly, like, critical reflection, so important. So how did you approach the process?
Yeah, I think my journey was a little bit different. I don't know that I was on the wait list for super long. And I remember once I got the notification that I wasn't admitted, I kind of immediately took the time to start reflecting and having conversations with like other MBAs and current students and alums that I knew, to really understand where my gaps were and what I could do over those next few months to better prepare for the next application cycle. And so similarly to Kenton, I started showing up to campus and really wanted to be more engaged and learn more about CBS. I knew that that was an area where I hadn't spent a lot of time before. So I made it a point to kind of attend the events and connect with current students and talk to the alums. But I think I also took a lot of time to redefine what my career goals were and really be able to better answer the question, why MBA and why CBS? And I think that was the piece that was most helpful for me, because once I understood that better, I knew kind of how to approach the application process better for the next cycle, and obviously was ultimately successful.
Yeah, in being able to understand it better for yourself, you were able to better communicate to us your why, not just why CBS, but sort of your why all along the journey, and to tell that story and connect those dots.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Chris, beyond MBA admissions, what did this experience teach you about how you handle professional maybes and ambiguity?
Yes. When I eventually received word that I wasn't going to get into CBS in the year that I wanted to, I know we're kind of broadening the scope beyond MBA applications. I think it kind of brought me full circle to a lesson that I learned earlier in my career, and maybe something that I know about myself is that if I don't get something the first time, and it's something that I really want, and it's something that I'm not willing to take no for an answer on, it kind of motivates me even more to pursue it. And I double down. I take a step back, assess what my weaknesses were. I unlike Indira, I had shown all the interest in the world to CBS. You guys knew that you wanted that I wanted to get into the program, but I had some weak areas. Work experience, coming out of the military, just did not have any business experience. My test scores were also below the median, so I took that time to step back and kind of like run a little bit with the underdog narrative, like kind of show, for not just for you guys in the reapplication process, but show myself that I can build the skills that I need to succeed at CBS and belong. So I guess kind of like you did, Trisha. I did not get into CBS that year, but I did get into sort of a professional development program, actually at the firm that I'm at, Wells Fargo. And so I took a year to, learn about the finance world, expand my network, and work inside of a bank in their corporate investment banking division, building out that skill set and retaking the test. I think at the end of the day, I was more confident heading into the reapplication process and ultimately into business school. with that background. So I think it ended up working out there in that context.
Okay.
But yeah, just broadly,
Do you,
I think I just double down whenever I get a professional, maybe.
yeah. Do you think that that came into play when you went through investment banking recruiting, the on-campus process? Because recruiting is so much ambiguity in general. Do you think that learning that muscle through the application process in some ways benefited you when you went through internship recruiting?
Yes, absolutely. I will say, getting through the door of admissions is just the start of your journey. I'm sure that holds true no matter which MBA program you go to or what step you're at in your career. But that is just the start of the journey because it moves very rapidly once you start on campus. The core curriculum is very rigorous. That is why there is so much screening for testing and experience. And the core curriculum was immensely challenging and recruiting for investment banking at the same time. It ultimately worked out for me. I mean, I'm here at the same firm that I ultimately took that opportunity for. So it couldn't have worked out better. So, taking a step back, confirming that I did want to pursue CBS, and then also going with the cards that I had in hand ended up working out better than I ever thought it would in the end. And it's paid dividends.
That's awesome. Kenton, let's myth bust. What's something that people believe about the reapplication process you found to be untrue?
This is a good one. I was thinking about this. I think really thinking about it, I think the biggest thing is not feeling like you have to completely change who you are to reapply. I kind of touched on this in my first response, and I feel like a lot of times when you get that rejection, you're like it's like a deep gut punch. You're like, oh man, like I just went 10 rounds in the ring with Mike Tyson, they beat me up. But you have to remember that all the stuff that even got you to the point of them even telling you no is still super valuable. And all you really need to do is kind of just find a better way to make them understand your journey. I think that's really like the biggest myth of this whole thing. I mean, there's a million different things that I could talk to you about, but I think the biggest one is that like your process to even be on this call speaks to the things that you've probably done and your belief and your ambition. Just find a way to make them understand. It's a little bit vague, but that's like the biggest thing is like do not go and completely revamp and hire a what's it called, a consultant and do all this stuff and come with a whole new story. Take your core, it's your story, and just make it your superpower that everyone here does have. Make it known. Make it known.
Yeah. Indira, what's something that surprised you about the process?
Um, Something that surprised me about the reapplication process or the overall application process.
Both, either.
Um, I think one thing I'll say about the reapplication process, I agree with what Kenton said. One piece of advice that I actually got from a current student was to essentially expand on my previous application instead of trying to come up with like a new one. I think the first time that I applied, there were certain elements of my application that I felt like were self-explanatory. I was like, oh, I don't have to explain to them like why I would want to like, be part of the management consulting club, for example, because I was a consultant before. But I think expanding on those elements and adding in like how I would contribute in a unique way or how I would improve the club, like those little things can make a difference because it communicates your interests in a way that's unique to you. So I think for me, the piece that was a little bit surprising about the application process and the reapplication process was just how much kind of like explaining you really have to do with all the elements of your application, like being very thorough about your story and making sure it comes across in a way that's like holistic and like as robust as possible, was a piece that I definitely was not unprepared for initially.
Right, right. Okay, before we get to Q&A, because we're going to transition to it pretty quickly, there's already some fantastic questions that are coming in from attendees. And I want to make sure that we have time for the panelists to answer those. Chris, what do you know now about the MBA, about CBS that you wish you knew when you were reapplying?
I think I already touched on sort of I think the rigor of the core curriculum and balancing that with recruiting, but I think like maybe more of a positive thing that maybe you think you have an idea of, and it's probably one of the reasons you're drawn to CBS is there's going to be fantastic opportunities and really interesting people in this program, high achieving people, ambitious people like yourselves that want to come here to New York and make a go of it, or if you're already here, you want to level up to to that next rung in your career. But I think the student body has been the standout feature of the CBS experience so far, and is what makes me so excited to return in the second year. You just really get people from all over the planet doing all sorts of different interesting things that you didn't even know existed before. And everyone is, sure they're competitive, but they're more so collaborative. And everyone like in your cluster, when you start the program, you rapidly become a family. At least my cluster did. And I like how high performing some of these people were. I thought that I worked with some high performing people in the military, and then in my first year in the banking world. But no, like it is really some of the most fantastic people I've ever met in my life. And so that for me was the inclination I had coming into the reapplication process, and I've still been blown out of the water with some of the people I've met on campus.